So how do you size a solar power system? This is my early morning reading on my new battery system. That is that 8-cell unit plus a 6-cell module that I have in parallel. The 8-cell battery being the one that I just made in my most recent 3 videos. So you're going to have some quiescent current just from the inverter sitting there with no load and other parts of about an amp. So you have to remember that. And here it is, this kind of cloudy sun coming through, charging at 0.3 amps. With the quiescent load of an amp, that's actually closer to 2 amps. And then every once in a while when the clouds clear out, you suddenly start getting significant amounts of charge. But let's say you have just a solid clouds all day long. You don't want your system to malfunction and shut down or go into safeties with your battery managers. Unless you have at least a full 24 hours of just dark battery time available. And to get an understanding of what that means just doing nothing. Your solar power system should be able to, at the very least, have a full amp for at least 24 hours, more likely 2 amps for a full 24 hours. That's basically using up an entire pair of cells. That's assuming you don't actually have any load on your system. So a full pair of cells does nothing. So it's really in your interest to make your batteries as large as possible and don't just have like 2 cells, because that's basically a worthless battery that just only exists to do nothing. So I've got 6 cells back there and 8 cells here, but really it's only 12 cells plus 2 waste cells just for the quiescent currents for the system with no load. And part of this quiescent current is used just to run your automatic transfer switch. It's actually a significant load just for that. So about 1 amp goes to that automatic transfer switch, at least for the system that I have. And about 1 amp just gets wasted in the inverter just humming and staying warm and just ready to go, even with no load on it. So it's really roughly a 2 amp load. So it's really a full pair of cells, because those things have like 40 amp hours when they're new, more like 35 or 30-ish when you buy them used on eBay. So that's only 24 hours for a 2 amp, that's 15 hours for a 2 amp load. In reality, you probably get more like a day because it's not going to be 2 amps. But still, that's an entire pair of cells. So you want to remember, you want your system to last at least 1 full day with no light. And so remember that when you size it. Now you may build a fancy system like I've got that's got like multiple redundancy and automatic transfer switches that switch over to a larger backup battery and a larger inverter when the outer inverters and smaller batteries get used up, like what I have here, these lead acid cells. And that's something also you want to remember. So my lead acid cells are designed to basically never run out, and I want them to be topped off at all times. So I've got this Victron to charge them up at night. And that's important because even if I've got redundancy built in, lithium-ion batteries are really better for cycling, and lead acid is really more for backup. So if you're going to make a system, get your lithium-ion batteries oversized so that they can last at least a day with, remember to subtract off a full day's load at 2 amps, or whatever your quiescent load is, and then add on whatever your typical use is. So what I find is basically 12 cells, or well, I've got more now, but I've got 14 cells of this size is more than enough for a large kitchen refrigerator. Before, when I only had 6 cells, it wasn't quite good enough because, remember, 2 of those are wasted, so it was really only 4 cells in the middle. And so it would definitely last overnight, even during winter solstice. But then it would depend on how much solar charge you would pick up during the day, and you'd have to have a bright day to recharge. And if it ever had a cloudy day, you would always switch to the lead acid backup. And then it would, of course, it would charge up after a while, and then it would be fine. But nevertheless, this was very frequently switching over to the lead acid backup, with this much larger power cell setup, I believe this might be able to run through the whole year without ever switching to the lead acid. But honestly, there's like several days in a row with no sun. But we'll see what happens.